So let's start the session. About Saro, we are doing privacy and cybersecurity work. Basically, anything privacy end to end is something that we take care of for our clients. We are also OneTrust partners and also partners with IAPP. Moving on, I'm Akash. I'm founder of Saro. Before this, I used to work at KPMG with Mayuran, and in due time, I have done privacy work with corporates, with startups, where we help clients get their privacy work done in terms of privacy policies, PIAs, ROPAs, and other things. Okay, so coming back to our session, keeping my introduction short. So what is a data protection officer? What is the job role that we keep talking about, and why is this a buzzword? An officer, I think if we go by definition, or rather, I think we have three DPOs already with us and Mayuran to who just clarified these questions, but just by definitions, a person who's responsible, let's say, for GDPR compliance, or is a person who is also designated to make sure that privacy work gets done and responsibilities are independent of the company's efforts. That is a person you can call a data protection officer. Basically, end of day, if somebody making sure of privacy compliances globally, somebody who's responsible in a company for that can be called out as data protection officer. So there are a few regulatory requirements. I think we deliberately put India in because we expect most of our viewers here who joined us in India, and also PDPB is coming in, but bear with me. The legislations that mandate appointment of DPO are GDPR, PDPB, the upcoming PDPB bill, obviously, the Data Protection Act in UK, LGPD, PDPA, PIPEDA, any privacy law that you know about mandates a DPO, and if not mandates a DPO, still you will need to have a DPO because end of day, the responsibility of personal data is increasing every day. I was in a session with IAPP, and one of the studies that we were reading on is in another 3 years, 50% of global population will be directly or indirectly under our privacy law. So that is the amount of regulations that are coming in the globe right now. And that is the amount of data protection officers that will be needed in India or anywhere else in the world. That is what we are looking at. So what are the responsibilities of DPO? I think obviously these are the questions that you will get an option to get answered as well. But just to call out again, the responsibility of a DPO is to inform and advise the controller or the processor and the employees. I think we will actually have a bit technical discussion. So we expect that data controller, data processor, these are the terminologies that we already know, or you have been to our previous seminars where we have sorted these very basic things already for you. To monitor compliance with data protection laws and organization policies, supervising DPIAs and monitor the performance of DPIAs. Also act as a contact point for supervisory authority for prior consultation as well as other communications. Yeah, those are the few responsibilities. I think very less have been quoted out. Once that role pops in, the amount of difficulty, it's complex because the global laws are complex, and managing regulations, or anybody here other than speaker also has been doing regulatory work, we know the things just keep getting difficult, keep getting complex, and just the solutions are difficult for this. So what is the experience needed to become? So I know this privacy being a regulatory law and regulation implementations, but what we have seen generally at Saro, as I have been talking to a lot of people, what I have seen, I've tried to summarize it with my polls as well on LinkedIn, is education that is needed is around engineers. You can see a lot of engineers here. You can see a lot of lawyers. This field is dominated by lawyers across the globe. Management professionals, MBAs, BBAs, we know the position itself is a position of responsibility and a position of power, where you will see major MBAs coming in and trying to solve that problem. Professional certifications that we have seen, I think we'll also talk about this in coming time, but IAPP, right, CIPP or CIPM or CIPD are the ones that are very common in the industry. I know there's one more that you will say that I didn't call out, that is CDPSE. CDPSE was being granted a few months back just on the basis of your knowledge. So still, I think once that comes under stream, or where you give exam and it starts getting, that ISACA flavor to it, I think probably it will be a good one also in coming times. So we will see how it goes. Experience. So in a study that I did in terms of poll, where around 500 people voted, 4 to 8 years, right, is the sweet time where you can spend time and become and take a data protection officer role. Obviously, just like a CISO role or a CEO role or a CXO role rather, there is no defined period when you will reach there. It's not a defined period, but that role can be achieved under 8 years. That is what we are trying to convey. After 4 years to 8 years, you have that option to be accepted as one if you're an expert in the field. So we have a question for you. I think the good part of today's session is it's on Mentimeter. So can you see on the top of the screen a Menti number and go to the menti.com. Okay, so the question is, who do you see the most in privacy? Legal professionals, InfoSec professionals, or management professionals? This question is to you, right? So we have a 50-50 between InfoSec and law. Yeah. And then we will move on. So, okay, so to our first question, I think our speakers are here. So how to start career in data privacy? So Mayuran, would you like to take this question?
I think this is a fantastic question because, I mean, what we see in the market now is that there is so much of requirement for data privacy professionals, right? This is one of the sought out area where we need more people to come in and help many organizations to help them in the privacy journey. This is an evolving area. I mean, if you see what is happening in the privacy world, I think daily basis, there are a lot of things happening. New regulations are coming. There are fines being imposed on organizations, so on and so forth. So to answer this question, particularly how to start a privacy career, is that I can suggest few things. So one is that obviously developing the knowledge, because if somebody is already into areas like InfoSec or quality, I mean, it is about switching to data privacy with some additional knowledge around data privacy. I mean, it is not you'll become a DPO on the day one. It is about getting to know the regulations, looking at the operational stuff on the ground. And important thing is that many times where we have real challenges is that how do we apply privacy in a business context? Because it's not about just applying a regulation in a context. Because I mean, applying privacy in a business context is extremely difficult. So it has to be little commonsensical approach along with techno and little bit of legal knowledge. I think probably first step is to ensure that you gain this knowledge. There are plenty of information available online, and there are many courses provided by LinkedIn and a few others where you can go and start this journey. Second point is that trying to kind of get your hands dirty. So this is where probably you should try to see that, I mean, how do typically some of these activities are kind of carried out. It will be data protection impact assessment or records of processing activities, so on and so forth. So I mean, these are the two things I would like to start off with: enhancing your knowledge, reading stuff. Second is ensuring that try to get an opportunity to start somewhere. I mean, if you're looking at to become a DPO maybe 10 years down the line, I would say this is the right time to start. Right? And this is an area which is going to evolve, and there's going to be more opportunities coming in.
Nitin, Pulkit, do you have anything to add to this?
So we have a couple of points to what Mayuran said. I think absolutely. One is that get the base knowledge, right? Understand the regulations, how they have evolved and why they have evolved as well. I think that's very important to have as a base and understand the key principles. A lot of the privacy laws are based on principles. So understand those key principles. That kind of sets the base for you. And as Mayuran said, how they apply in a business context, I think that's the next step. And that's the more important part, I would say as well. So understand the business that you are in. I mean, whatever company you're working for or trying to get into, understand the business, understand that sector, understand the processes which are followed by business. And that's going to be very key, because unless you understand the processes, you will not be able to understand the impact of the privacy requirements on your processes. So look at data flows, look at how the data comes in, from where it comes in, who are your data subjects. So those are very basic things that you should understand and very, very clearly. Look at maybe some contracts which you have. So if you're working in the legal department, for example, look at some contracts you have. What are the data privacy related clauses which are there in the contracts? So those are things you can look at. If you are working in a company, try to reach out to the data privacy team. If you're not already in the data privacy team, try to reach out to them, ask for help. Okay, provide your support, provide to volunteer. Some companies have these data privacy champion networks. Try to become one, because that would kind of give you an inside view as to how the data privacy team works. Things what Mayuran mentioned again, how do you conduct a PI? You will see templates, you will see how they are filled in for different types of processes. For example, how do you maintain records of processing? How do you react to a breach, or how do you plan for responding to a breach? If you try to become a data privacy champion, you would kind of get hands-on experience. So try to offer your help. And I'm sure there would be somebody in the data privacy team who would be willing to take you on board as their mentee maybe, or somebody who is going to help them from a data privacy champion perspective as well. So beg, borrow, I wouldn't say steal as much as possible, but at least borrow and try to get that opportunity to work in data privacy by being a champion or whatever nomination you have. The other aspect which I would maybe suggest is to build your network. So it is fairly I think easy to reach out to people. At the most, what will happen is that people may say, no, I don't want to communicate with you, or but very rarely I've seen people say no to you. Build your network. You should be able to reach out to somebody and say, hey, I have this challenge. How would you think of resolving this? So that network always helps. I still try to keep building my network where I can reach out to somebody with a particular scenario and say, hey, how do I take care of it? What are your thoughts on this? And it always helps to get a different perspective as well. Another thing which I have seen very useful, and I still use that quite a lot, IIPP has this mailing list where all these participants or members of IIPP, they put down their scenario, okay, that this is what they're trying to do. And they ask for advice, okay, how have people done it? Okay, what would other people do? And I've seen a lot of useful information coming there. And sometimes I go and refer those mailing lists as well to see if I can get help for a particular scenario that I'm in, and I may not have ready answers for that as well. So I think these are maybe practical ways of trying to get your hands dirty, because understanding regulation is one part of it, but how they apply to the business is another part. And that is where some of these points would be useful. Thank you.
Thanks, Nitin. I think Amar, Pulkit, would you like to add on to something?
At this point, as far as data privacy in the Indian market is concerned, we are at a very sweet spot, because just at the threshold level, we just have to go a long distance. In the European and US markets, we know that privacy is now seen as a market enabler. But in India, yes, going forward, it has to cross the legal and the compliance requirement stage. So anyone at any point of time in your career, if you can get good knowledge in data privacy and start your career in privacy.
Is there anything you want to add, or would you like to take a question?
Just one point quickly. So I think the best thing in data privacy, or the most important thing in data privacy, is you need to read a lot, because you would be reviewing contracts, the data protection clauses. You need to sometimes interpret the regulatory requirements as well. So if you're not already used to reading a lot, like start doing that, because that would come really handy when you start your career in data privacy. That's it. I mean, all the other points are already covered by our panelists.
Right. So thank you, Miran, for taking one question already. So I'll get on to the next one. Any suggestions on Indian? So for blogging, for materials, I think all four of us, including everybody here, would recommend you IIPP. Membership really helps out. You can have the best material that is there internationally. So, and privacy obviously has grown so much. So we cannot rely only on the Indian materials that we can see, Harshal. So this is, I think, is a question. If I have opportunity to build data protection teams or wings, how can I start for my organization? I think Pulkit, would you like to take this?
I think first thing you need to do is to talk to your management, get their buy-in, because in data privacy management, buy-in is really important, because they have to understand the importance of data privacy in an organization. Then if you already have an experience in data privacy, you want to build your own team. I think Nitin has already covered that. Start building that champions network, because we need the involvement of all the privacy stakeholders in all the business units. So build that champions network. And then when you're starting to define your own team, be very sure what your mission is going to be, what you will do, what you want to achieve, what kind of change you want to bring in that organization. Define that mission and vision statement for your team. And then do not hold yourself back in terms of hiring only legal people or only InfoSec people who are really have an experience in privacy, because privacy is something that can be understandable if interest in it. So look out for those resources who have a really keen interest in data privacy rather than experience, because experience doesn't really matter in data privacy, talking about my own experience or own career. So yeah, that's my take on it.
So I will move on. Thanks for answering that. So this question is specific to banking. So I think I'd request Amar to take this up. Who does the DPO report in a banking infrastructure?
Group compliance officer, and he reports to the board directly. And I have seen some roles in private sector banks like Axis and HDFC, wherein the DPO reports to the Chief Information Security Officer.
Right, Amar. Right.
So it's what you can say, still fluid here. And the same goes for other banks like IndusInd Bank and State Bank of Mysore, where InfoSec background people report the same to their CISO, and who in turn reports to the board.
Yep. So Amar, we will get on to the next question. So I think this question we'll put to Mayuran. Can we use the term data privacy officer and data protection officer interchangeably?
I think that is how it is being used now. So, I mean, the difference between data privacy impact assessment and data protection impact assessment, right? So there is, I mean, technically it can be used interchangeably, but what you have to understand is that the privacy side is more aligned to, I would say from the weightage point of view, it's more towards the legal side. When it comes to protection, it involves a lot of technology, which is supporting the organizations to kind of protect the data, right? Including DLP. The responsibility is slightly broad in my view from the data protection officer point of view, but most of the time these are used interchangeably at this point in time.
Yep. Thank you, Myron. I think we will go on to our next question. Welcome back to Menti again. And the question is, who do you think can become a data protection officer? An InfoSec professional, a lawyer, a privacy manager, or all of the above? Okay, all of the above. Okay, lawyers. Okay. So, okay, I think, Myron, we still have time, Nitin. So I think till people are doing Menti, we can answer one more question. How CISO role is different than a DPO role, Nitin?
So I think CISO role is more, I would say, older than the DPO role, and CISO traditionally has been the role which takes care of overall data, right? And personal data is a subset of their overall data. So CISO would be responsible for maintaining the security, the CIA triad that we talk about, maintaining that CIA triad for overall data at an organization. And they come purely from a security perspective, safeguarding the data and so on and so forth. The data privacy officer's role would be to take care of the compliance with regards to the personal data, which is going to be a subset of your overall data, which you have at an organization. Data privacy requirements, as again briefly mentioned, typically come from a legal space. So there typically would be a law, and the data privacy officer's responsibility would be to ensure compliance with those laws. There's always going to be an overlap between what the CISO does and what the DPO does to a certain extent, but I don't see these roles to be the same or the reporting structure to be the same as well. I would look at them as distinct roles with distinct responsibilities with some amount of overlap. For example, the CISO would be responsible to provide the security services, or the security principle of the data privacy laws would be fulfilled by the CISO, typically at least. So I would see them as distinct roles and with distinct responsibilities with some overlap.
I think very well put forward. So we will take another question. Okay. I think Nitin was talking also about this when he was telling that, how to start a career. So what can we do to build a track record other than doing? So for example, if somebody is not doing an internship and he still wants to get in the career, and let's say people are looking for a job, Nitin, in the open market, and they do not doing internship, but they still want to get into privacy. So what are the things that they can do so that it becomes easy for the hiring people to get them in?
So I think internship is one option, Akash, but the options may not be that common, at least in India as of now. So the other thing which I mentioned about trying to work with the data privacy team. So you may not be in the data privacy team of your company, but trying to work with the data privacy team as an ambassador or as a champion. I think Pulkit also talked about that companies would want to build out their data privacy champion network. That gives an opportunity for you to actually work on data privacy related matters, right? So you get hands-on experience. You get hands-on experience in conducting a PI, understanding how data is coming in, data flows in your company, and so on and so forth. So that may be one, I would say, option that you can look at to get your hands dirty again, as we said earlier. That would allow you to know how the data privacy team operates. You would be able to tell somebody that this is how I would actually conduct a DPI when you go for an interview, for example. So I would suggest maybe trying to be part of the data privacy officer team as an extended arm by being a champion or an ambassador would be one way. Second is to see if somebody in the industry is willing to mentor you, not being in the same company necessarily, but somebody who is willing to mentor you as such. So that again, you go through the same learning experience which the DPO and his or her team would be going through, to ensure that again, you get to know what is really being done by the data privacy team on a day-to-day basis. So these are a couple of things I can think of, Akash.
Right, Nitin. And I think that's hope for some people here as well. So all of the above is the answer that we will give the winner. And moving on to a question also, who can become a DPO? So Pulkit, would you like to start this? Yeah.
Of course. So as the voting suggested, anyone can become a DPO. It doesn't have to be a legal lawyer. It doesn't have to be an InfoSec professional. The most important thing for a DPO, I mean, if we keep aside the some few regulations that really mandates or really puts down the qualification that a DPO has, in general, the most important thing to become a DPO is a practical experience in privacy, because data privacy or data protection, it doesn't only mean protecting your personal data. There's a lot more on it. You need to understand where your data is residing. You need to understand the risks that are the privacy risks that are there in your organization. So have that practical experience in privacy. And we already spoke about how you gain that experience. And it's just about reaching out to the right people, building the right context, networks, right experience, being aware of all the specific requirements of privacy regulations around the world. And then don't hold yourself back thinking that only a lawyer can become a DPO. You can also become a DPO. The most important thing for you to get your hands dirty, as all of us have said now, and get into the detail of why data protection is important. And the most important thing for a DPO is to and that you are working for an organization reporting to the senior most management, but you're actually working for your employees, for your data subjects, whose personal data you're processing, because you have to ensure that their rights and freedoms are not infringed with. You need to ensure that their rights are undertaken, because DPO is something that is a representative of data subjects more than of an organization, because it is independent. So the DPO doesn't have to worry about what organization is doing. He has to worry about how does he protect the personal data of the organization's customers or organization employees. So at the end of the practical experience, that's most important, and you can become a DPO.
Right. I think Amar, would you like to add on to this from an Indian context?
Yeah, I think Pulkit has covered almost everything. I just want to add one point is that DPO should be able to stand by what he has observed, and he should be able to tell the board or the senior management whatever lacuna he has found in the process. The point is that he is the go between the regulator and the organization also. So these are the many hats which DPO should be wearing going forward.
Thanks, Amar, for this, for clarifying and adding on to that. I think we have a question. These are very technical questions, and I will have to ask other than the topic as well. So Mayuran, I think this would be the right question for you. How to implement data privacy for a legacy stack in the company?
Okay. I think there is no straightforward answer to this question. I mean, that's what we see in the market. So what happens is that, I mean, many times, the implementing privacy controls in a newly getting developed application is much easier. But when it comes to legacy applications, I mean, this is a very common thing we see in most of the companies, but I think we can adapt to certain principles. So you can't get 100% assurance on privacy on a legacy system, right? So you have to look into some of the things like what are the data protection controls you can bring in. I mean, I'm sure that all of us know about the privacy by design as a concept. So you try to apply certain principles in the application. It will largely rely on security controls or underlying security controls to strengthen those principles. So things like your access control, making sure that there's a log maintained. So these are some of the things which you can do to kind of strengthen your system from security point of view, which you'll be already doing. But what is that from the privacy point you need to do? You have to understand those things. How do you apply those principles? Things like how do I apply data minimization principle on a legacy system? That could be fairly easy because you have to see what are the data the system is collecting, and is it really required for processing? Do you have a kind of a legal basis for collecting it? If not, leave them out. So that's a kind of change you have to do. But while I'm picking the one which is easy to explain and easy to do, there are many things which is very difficult to do. For example, in a legacy system, if you have to do pseudonymization or anonymization, right, the technical controls implementation could be a challenge. So this is a definitely kind of evolving area. But the only thing which I think most of us suggest is that, I mean, because it's a legacy system, don't think that you cannot do anything. Don't kind of shy away from that. Try to do the minimum stuff. Then obviously you may be having certain controls outside the system, which is also fine for initial stages. I mean, till the time that system becomes a kind of a matured one, or you kind of replace a new system, in the interim, you can have some controls over the system as well. Right, so this is why how I would probably look at this solution.
Okay, coming back to our slides. So, okay, I think the important question that is also there on chat, and I think let's come to these questions to Mayuran now. So what do you think is the roadmap to become a data protection officer? Like in that 4 years to 8 years timeline that we were discussing, it takes to become one. And obviously we have 3 data protection officers, but.
Sure. So I think probably I'll call out some of the qualities you have to develop over the period of time to become a data protection officer, right? I mean, one is, I think we all spoke about developing the knowledge. It could be a certification, these kind of things to develop the knowledge. And the second point, that there is plenty of information available for free to kind of learn what are the things happening in data privacy. Because see, end of the day, I mean, while we are talking about a techno-legal subject, the legal part is, I mean, it's not easy to understand. It's not easy to interpret. I mean, at times, I mean, it's very subjective on a particular situation, how a particular aspect is getting applied, right? So that has to be learned, and it will take time. So what are the other things which we need to focus on is that definitely focus on a particular industry and the privacy around that. So for example, we can see Amar's experience, how he has moved into DPO. So he has an immense, experience in the banking industry, which is really helping him to understand how privacy issues can impact the banking industry, which helps him to work on what are the framework and the kind of solutions he are looking into from the privacy angle. Second is that whether you can really communicate some of your thoughts and convince your business, right? That's another ability. Because largely your stakeholders are going to be business where you're going to tell them or you're going to ask them to do certain things in a particular way. So how is your relationship with them? How can you network with them? I mean, how do you position some of your thoughts, right? That becomes extremely critical, right? Because that is what will decide how successful your organization is going to be from privacy point of view. And third is obviously the ability to kind of interpret regulations. I mean, probably I'm not sequencing it here. Probably I put this one as the first one, where you can technically ability to understand what the regulation is asking for and kind of interpret that into implementable measures. Because I think this is where the people with management ability and the technical skills will kind of bring in a lot of value, saying that, okay, how do we operationalize stuff? Yeah, so those are the initial thoughts.
Yeah. And thanks. This is a technical question. I think the challenge, once you take that roll up and then when you spend more time, I know there's always a challenge when things can be done faster, right? Always there is an option of things getting done faster, but a review and independence are always a challenge. And I think there is also perspective from the Indian law, and not just from a GDPR or a US perspective where independence is a challenge. So Nitin, would you like to take this question? How does a DPO maintain independent authority in an organization? Yeah.
I think, Akhil, this is a very interesting topic, especially in the Indian context. The responsibilities can overlap to a large extent. I think the main aspect that I would look at is in terms of the reporting structure. Who does the DPO report into from an organization perspective? And Amar briefly talked about a couple of things which he has seen. And yes, I think all of us have seen that the DPO can report into legal. DPO. We have seen practical areas where the DPO can report into the CISO. Sometimes into the CIO maybe, and other functions as well. And that kind of reporting structure, what I feel, kind of hampers the independence of the DPO, because if you are reporting into a business function, for example, or reporting into a CISO, there would be, I would say, overlaps and I would say clashes as well when it comes to the DPO trying to give his or her independent view, because the clashes would prevent him or her from doing that to a large extent. So I think the way to maintain the independence, to answer the question directly, is to ensure that the reporting happens into some function which doesn't typically have a clash with, let's say, the business function. So we have seen, as I said, instances where the DPO can report into legal. That's the typical way it is handled in a lot of companies, or into compliance and risk functions as well. So those functions are typically kind of responsible for independent view of the company matters. And that actually helps to maintain the independence of the DPO. There is guidance from a GDPR perspective, obviously, and they have given examples where the DPO should not report into. And examples are like IT, InfoSec to a large extent, business units, because those are the ones which define the purpose and the means. So those are ways to kind of ensure the independence of the DPO, I would say.
Yeah. Thanks for summarizing it very well, Nitin. I can also understand that a few speakers here will be leaving us in another few minutes. So also what happened is we started recording a bit delayed when people were giving the disclaimers. So can speakers here just repeat the disclaimer that they're representing views are personal, so it gets recorded in the session here. Nitin?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, sure, Akash. I think the standard disclaimer from my side is that my views which I present here are my personal views and they do not represent my company's views as such. Thank you.
Mayuran?
Yes. So whatever the views I'm sharing are purely my personal views. I mean, it is not from the company I'm representing. Thank you.
Yep. Amar?
Yeah. Any views expressed by me are...
So everyone, my views are purely, completely personal. Does not represent the way PT works, and I would not be sharing any of the PT insights or.
And adding on to just that this session is not a legal advice, and in case you can only take guidance, and we respect to take guidance from here and do more research before actually implementing anything in your organization. Yeah. Okay, so I think we are getting technical now. So now another question for you. I know you're on Menti right now as well. So why don't you answer this? Can a single person act as a DPO for multiple jurisdictions? What do you think? Yes, Mayuran.
Akash, I'll use this window to say goodbye to all of you. Thank you so much for the wonderful opportunity, Akash, and it was lovely interacting with you all. Thanks for the very useful questions. So, I mean, you can be in touch with us through LinkedIn and stuff. Happy to help.
Mayuran, would you like to put your LinkedIn link here so that people can connect with you in case they want to reach out for help?
No, they can easily search for Mayuran Palnisamy.
Okay,
so,
I will do that.
Thank you so much. Thank you all. Have a good day and a good weekend. Thank you.
Sure, Mayuran. Thanks for joining. Okay, so we have 34 people who have voted for it already. So I guess we'll call it a truce. And yes, depends on the law of land. Okay. So we will come to the question then, can a single person act as a DPO for multiple jurisdictions? Yeah. So Pulkit, would you like to take this up?
It really depends on the law of the land. So when we talk about GDPR, it does say that a group organization with all its entities, a single DPO can cover all of them, but it has to be easily reachable in the respective countries' office hours and be available all the time. So it depends, but it's always advisable to have one DPO for single entity, because then you're single-pointedly responsible for the data privacy management of that entity. And it's more jurisdictions that you have, more complex your work will become, and that independent DPO requirement will not suffice the most jurisdictions that you have. So see which jurisdiction you are responsible for, see the law of that land, and then act accordingly for your organization structure and processes.
Right.
But my personal opinion, be responsible for a single entity or a single jurisdiction.
Nitin and Amar, would you like to add on?
Yeah, Akash, the point is that every organization would like to have one person exclusively working on its own interest. So normally they won't be willing to share those responsibilities. And as and when with differing time zones for each location, it would not be prudent to, what you can say, the time delays which will incur in having a single DPO for multiple locations. So ideally, it should be better to have independent DPO for each jurisdiction. That is what an organization or the regulator governing that organization would expect. Because I don't think the Indian regulator would expect a person looking after so and so.
Nitin, would you like to add on to this if you have a different opinion or similar opinion?
I think maybe a slightly different perspective, Akash, which I can bring to this. I think the DPO, let's say of a group company, can be one DPO. But I think as both Pulkit and Amar said, you might still want to have a person who might not necessarily be termed as a DPO or called a DPO, but a person who is responsible for data privacy matters in a particular jurisdiction. And for various reasons, I mean, time zone availability, it might be a language requirement. Some laws actually say that the person has to be a local person as such. So you might still be the overall DPO of a company, of a group company, for example, but you might have somebody in your team who is designated as the person who is responsible for a particular region or for a particular jurisdiction. So that kind of structure is also something that you can always look at as well. Thank you.
Thanks for your inputs. And okay, so we are back to another question. So what are the three certificates? Okay, so Saro is an official IPv partner. So it's a good question to ask you all now. So what is the question that you see? Is CIPP a PM or a PT? What do you think is the DPO certification? And also, I think I'll open the session for speakers to take the question. If they see, if they have a similar view or a different view, a certification is needed or not needed. Nitin, Pulkit, Amar, please feel free to add on to what our audience thinks.
I'll go in. Like, certification is something that's kind of, we have polarizing views on it. So some people think that it's just like getting a tag onto your name that, okay, you are certified. And then there are other section of the people who thinks that it is important as a certification because you learn when you study for it. So I am in that latter part of it. I believe that certification is not only that something that you just put in front of your name and that's it. You have to study for it. And when you're studying for it, you get to understand. And talking about data privacy, I did my certifications and I learned a lot from it. I didn't know much about data privacy before I started doing certifications. So it was a way for me to gain more insights into privacy, to understand the history of privacy in the world, and then to understand the privacy program. How do you build a team? That was a starting point for me to come into the data privacy world. So the IAPP certifications, I'll only talk about it because I have it and I see them as a gold standard in data privacy. So take them as an opportunity to gain more insight into data privacy, to gain more knowledge. Don't just as a checklist think that, okay, I need to do this certification just for the sake of it. Because then you would probably not succeed even, because IAPP certifications are designed in such a way that you have to really apply your knowledge of data privacy into an exam and then only you'll pass it. So take it as an opportunity, as a learning curve.
Definitely. I think, Pulkit, just to add on what exactly the same thing that has been happening. We have an academy. So I will always be saying in positive of a certification. Obviously, that is what people will expect. But still, a lot of people come to me and they call me like, hey, Akash, do you think I'll get CIPPE and I'll become a data protection officer? Or and this happens, right? I get so many questions. And the only answer that I tell them is exactly what you were telling is, see, if you are going for CIPPE or PM, you first of all, you cannot pass if you do not have knowledge. And even after doing that examination, if you do not have experience, privacy is a game of perspective. You have to know what is right. With experience you learn. It's not a field where it's not security where 1 + 1 is equals to 2. It's different. It needs some knowledge, it needs your opinions, and then we can come out and decide. So definitely I would not choose any of the certifications, but I would say these certifications need to be chosen with experience. If you have experience or you are going to get experience, maybe CIPM and CIPP are the best things for you to put that step forward for your next step. But I think people here can definitely, even when saying that, can definitely check out our academy and see if they have something for them. So Nitin, would you like to take this question as well? I know this is a very important question and everybody has this question in their mind.
So this is still the same about which certification you're talking about?
CIPM, CIPP.
Okay. So I think kind of to echo what Pulkit and you mentioned, right? So for me also, from my perspective, having a certification in privacy is important because it kind of sets the base. I mean, for me, it has always been setting the base, right? Setting the foundation. And beyond that is when you start getting into more deeper matters to do with your business, to get a practical experience that we have been talking about, and so on and so forth. So yes, I think whoever wants to make a career in privacy should set up the base, set up the fundamentals, I would say, by doing some certifications. And which of these certifications, if you're going to start, I mean, your goal is to become a data privacy officer at some stage of your career, I think is something which will kind of build that base again. It explains to you how the overall privacy strategy should be, how do you build up a privacy program, how do you implement it, how do you monitor it, and so on and so forth. So I think that is something which is important. But at the same time, it is important, I think, to combine it with a domain specific one or a region specific one. So CIPP has these various flavors. So if you're going to work primarily on let's say Indian perspective, so Asia might be the one for you, or if you are going to deal with a lot of European data, then CIPPE might be the flavor. So those are options that you can look at. CIPT is something which I have not seen being talked about too much, and I don't see anybody who has talked about CIPT here from a mentee response perspective. But I think it is also important, especially if you are working more in a technology industry, maybe, where you need to do more of privacy by design. Your software needs to be built with certain controls from a privacy perspective again, right? So CIPT might be helpful over there. So I think it depends on the context in a lot of the cases, but these are things you should consider when you want to go in a particular direction.
And then definitely, I think in terms of certifications, we at Academy, I know internally not shown you, but we've also created some courses from Academy where we can give a practical experience and not just give certification. So we combine it with our CIPM programs and do that. But I think in next webinars, probably we'll have more clarity for people who have joined here. So obviously Academy is something that they can join. And okay, this again a sweet question. So is there any timeline specified under law for prior experience to become a data protection officer? So guys, now you again have mentee to answer. Do you think no, or do you think 5+ years, or do you think 10+ years? Okay, no.
Which law are we talking about, Akash?
We are not specific over there.
Okay, like in general. Okay.
In general. I think being in India, I think most of the laws, Indian companies are mostly doing business in the US and Europe. So GDPR and CCP, everything applies.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So also for companies like you are coming from, and then probably the global perspective, Japanese law, I don't know if we're touching that already or not, but still there's no stopping to the number of legislations that you both would be looking at in Asia perspective, because there are so many. Singapore has one, Thailand has one. China is coming up with another one.
Korea one.
Yeah, Korea one, exactly. And Amar, probably from an Indian perspective, what is your take? What is your take from the Indian perspective?
So I'll be coming from this angle that as we report to the board and the senior management, normally we are looking at people over and above 10 to 15 years. So as and when a couple of banks also, when they aspire for the roles of CPO, they are asking a cutoff around 20 years or something. So it's not the privacy knowledge of 20 years. They want experience in their own field, whether it's banking, financial services, insurance, or anything. Their experience coupled with privacy knowledge is what each organization is looking at. So I think in Indian context, Indian banks is at least around definitely more than 10 years.
Yep. Sure. I think we again have a contrasting view where we have 5 years, we have 20 years, we have 10 years. So I think what Nitin mentioned, I think initially is a timeline, a date cannot be specified to a data protection role. And time and again, I have asked this question to the community of privacy, but time and again, we have realized that it's a game of knowledge, experience, certifications, and may not be number of years, who you are or where you are. It's something else, because privacy questions are not general questions. It's a perspective based question. If you have experience, you would have seen those issues happening and you would have solved those questions. And I know reading a book is very easy. Saying that a regulation should do that is very easy, but actually going on the ground and making a regulatory compliance being followed, it's hell of a work. And hats off to data protection officers. I think even people here, just training awareness is a challenge. And we start just number 1, number 2, number 3. There's no end to a data protection officer's job responsibilities. I think initially somebody also pointed out saying a data protection officer would be an owner for data. So I think Mayuran responded to that saying, hey, no, that is not something that is. Yeah. Nitin, would you like to take that question up? I see that, you... I'm saying the data ownership part.
Oh yeah, so that is, I think, one common misconception which is there, and the short answer is no. The data privacy team is never the owner for most of the data which an organization handles. It is the business teams which own the data, so they are the data owners. There might be other players or stakeholders. For example, your IT team may be what we typically call as a data custodian, but the data owners are typically the business units or the business owners as such. I would say related misconception which I've typically seen is that who owns the data privacy risk. So we talked about data ownership, but in terms of risk ownership, there is another common misconception that the data privacy team or the data privacy officer is responsible for the data privacy risks. And that is something which I typically try to educate our business teams, that it is again the business teams who are responsible for data privacy risks, and not just data privacy risks, I would say, but all kinds of risks, right? Because they are the ones who own the data, they are the ones who interact with the consumers, or they are whoever the stakeholders are. So we are there to advise, we are there to guide them, but the ownership still lies with the business.
And I think, Nitin, probably we will do a goodbye to everyone after this question. Thanks to Nitin, Pulkit, and Amar for going the extra mile and staying back with us. And obviously, Mayuran has had an amazing Q&A session. And I know people from the audience would have gotten their doubts cleared, clarified. Special thanks to you for being able to take out time. I know how busy your schedules are. Thank you for taking the time out for our audience, for Saro, so that people can get their questions clarified. Thank you, Nitin. Thank you, Pulkit, and thank you, Amar. Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Akash, for hosting us. Thank you.